These are prairie dogs. Prairie dogs are a great example of how individuality and togetherness forces work at unit levels. They live in family groups called coteries within large colonies. The coteries are all contiguous to each other, and they're small family groups, and they guard their territories from each other. But at the same time, all the way across the colony, which can be miles across, they alert for predators, and they share that information all the way across the colony so that everyone knows. So you see the multiple unit levels. The viability of the group depends on each prairie dog doing some of the work. One of the more interesting facts about that is that within the little coteries, there's huge variation. One will be watching 80% of the time for predators, the other 20 to 30% of the time. So they show us a lot of variation. Well, so what exactly is happening in individuality and togetherness? At the lower levels of differentiation, and Randy Frost will recognize this quote, possibly, the life force of individuality struggles against the intensity of the togetherness force. And it gets expressed in a more selfish way, pursuing one's own perceived interest without regard for the realistic impact on others. And then at higher levels, we see something different. We see that the togetherness force gets expressed in a more mature way. The quality of emotional contact with others is different. There's genuine interest in each other's well-being. In other words, the togetherness force is not a bunch of back and forth blaming. You can see that I've tried to make it lighter color on the left and darker color on the right. And what I think is that as togetherness forces are more mature, there's a different quality to how the force is expressed. So that on the left-hand side, you can see the feeling guilty, the responsibility for others, or the demand that other be responsible for oneself. And on the right-hand side, you can see that more attitude and tone of respect and attention to differences and interest in one another. And that's what the togetherness force looks like in a more mature expression. Now, okay. And then the individuality force, I think, happens the same way, that on the less mature side, you can see a lack of self, or sometimes you can see some true narcissistic, what our society calls narcissistic behavior. And on the refusing responsibility for self, and man, people can really dig in their heels on that. In my experience, especially if they were focused on, they're just not used to that idea that they should be responsible for themselves, and they can take that a long way. And anyhow, on the right-hand side is a more mature expression of the individuality force with autonomous behavior and responsibility for self, but also to others, a recognition that one's own behavior does influence others' lives, so that doesn't get left behind. So what I will say in conclusion is that these things are measurable. That's what I was going to do next, was show how they were going the wrong way, but when it comes to the Exodus story, we could rate them all going the other direction. So see how fluid it is. But what I wanted to say about faith communities is that the universe's dramatic groping towards differentiation, along with more intense unity in the future, is what faith communities are doing, and it's beautiful. Thank you.